Getting this thing ready. Thanks, Rabbi Ashlag. Okay, so let me just make sure. There we go. Right, it's nice and quiet. Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. So we're going to have a deep dive. That's what they call it these days. A deep dive into Yom Kippur. Okay. So as you can imagine, there's quite a lot of Zohar and stuff on Yom Kippur, but none of it's very understandable. So before we go into the actual materials, we will talk about it.
Have you got your microphone on? Did it? Well, my sound is funny. It might be my computer.
No, it's probably me. Sorry. Yeah, my microphone was dangling near the floor, so I don't think
it sounds a bit already. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
You sound a lot better now.
Yes, I can imagine. All right, sorry. Okay, so we're going to have a go at Yom Kippur. All right, now, in order to understand Yom Kippur, we have to really understand the energies of what's actually happening. Okay, so one of the things that we can think about Yom Kippur, first of all, is that it's the day of forgiveness of sins. All right. How do we know this? Because, the energies go round like a year each time, the same energies come back. And it's the day when Moses brought down the second tablets of stone, and the children of Israel were completely forgiven for the sin of the golden calf. Okay, so it's definitely the day of forgiveness of sins. It's also, this issue of forgiving the sins has probably got, another energetic meaning as well. But, for us, that's good enough. We can get the idea just from that. How do we get sins forgiven? All right. And what is a sin? And that's really the first thing we really need to ask. What actually is a sin? And how does it get forgiven? Okay. So all sins, okay, are basically using our will to receive the light and pleasure, okay, that God wants to give us. But instead of receiving them for the sake of giving, which would bring us into affinity of form with the Creator, we just want to bring it to us, okay? As if no correction of creation, no tzimtzum, no tikkun, no Torah and mitzvot had ever even been invented. All right? But that's not the case. We are the children of the Malchut. And the Malchut in the Ein Sof decided that it wanted to be in more affinity of form than just simply receiving. In the Ein Sof, the light was giving all its goodness to the vessel, and the vessel was just receiving it like something passive, okay? And the Malchut wanted to actually become an active partner with God. It wanted to be in affinity of form, meaning that it wants to be giving just like God is giving. So the ultimate correction is, instead of receiving, just take. It's receiving only for the sake of giving to others, only for the sake of giving to our fellow man, only for the sake of giving to God. Okay? So that's actually what the tikkun is about. And so any sin basically is just going back to that primal premise of I just want to receive, and I'm just interested in the pleasure, and I really am not interested in doing any rectification or any tikkun of any sort whatsoever. Okay? And that's what a sin is. Okay? And there's different degrees. Okay, we start off with hate is a mistake. All right. And then there is avon. Avon is from the word ivut, which means distortion. Because if you pile up the mistakes, you eventually get a distortion of reality. Okay, you see the world through rather mistaken perception. Okay, so that's really one of the reason why we do need to do tshuva also on mistakes. Okay, because otherwise we're going to end up with a very distorted sense of reality based on our will to receive for ourselves alone. If we've just been filling up our will to receive for ourselves alone, even if it happened by accident, we're going to end up distorted. Okay, and then, of course, the next level is Pesha, Zadon, where we're actually doing sins on purpose. Okay, now it happens to all of us. All of us have hata'im, and we have avonot, and we have zdonot. Okay, so if we're going to go through the whole of next year, remember Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year, but it's a process. You've got 3 festivals, which are basically all 3 bits of the same festival, really. Okay, there's Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, and they really, really have to be seen as one thing. Okay, it's getting that malchut, getting the vessels ready to do another cycle of work and correction through the year ahead. So Rosh Hashanah is where we start, okay? And we've done a good beginning, okay? We've blown the shofar, we've connected the Malchut with Bina, that's great. But now Yom Kippur is the next level, okay? It's the next stage, all right? And then we come to Sukkot, which brings us the middle line. So from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, we have the vessels of receiving being built up. Okay, you've got 10 days. Okay, so you've got 10 Svirot. So every day of the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is another additional bringing of this of a great light. Okay, which comes into the world finally. You know, it's each day has got more and more and more. And finally, we come to a big light, huge light on Yom Kippur. Now, why do we need such a great big light on Yom Kippur? And the answer is, for the forgiveness of sins, we need a tremendous amount of the light of the Or de Chochmah, the great light, okay, which came into the world, which God wants to give us according to his thought of creation. This is necessary for the forgiving of sins. If you're wondering why, think about it in terms of redemption. It's the same thing, really, okay? The energy of the children of Israel coming out of Egypt is exactly the same energy of letting go of your will to receive yourself alone. Egypt is the will to receive, and God is, you know, on Pesach, he takes us out of our will to receive for ourselves alone. He takes us out of the domination of the Egyptians. So you can see, of course, why we need a great big light to take us out of Egypt. It's exactly the same thing, all right? Just from a different direction, but it's the same thing. It's different imagery, but the energy is, the idea is the same. So you can see why we need a great big light to clean off the sins, and that's what we want, because we want to start off the next year where we're able to be in connection with God. We don't want to be in a situation where we are separated from him because of our sins, because we've been receiving for ourselves alone and he's all giving. So we're separated because of difference of form. We don't want to start off the new year with distortions in our thinking, in our perceptions. And we certainly don't want to start off the new year estranged from God, which would be with the zdonot. So what we want is, and this is what God's given us the opportunity for, is to start off the year all nice and clean. Okay? And in fact, Rabbi Akiva called Yom Kippur the mikveh of Israel. Okay? It's a day of a mikveh. It's a day of like a bath, all right? Where we can all get clean. So that's the energy of the day. Has anybody got any questions so far?
No.
No? Yeah? Okay, great. All right. So far, so good. Now, next issue. This great light is coming into the world. All right. And the will to receive for itself alone, which is called in Hebrew, in the language of Kabbalah, the Sitra Achra, the whole framework of evil, okay, is very attracted by this light because that's its sustenance. It wants to receive this light for itself alone, and the more the better, okay? That's the energy of the will to receive. So God gave us a mitzvah on Yom Kippur, and that is to fast. Right, it's actually 5 afflictions, inuyim, okay, which is the not eating, not drinking, not putting nice stuff on, not wearing sandals, and not having intercourse. So these are the 5 inuyim. All right. And what are we doing with these restrictions? Afflictions, what we're doing is we're reducing our will to receive down to the absolute minimum. Okay? So we are occupied with not receiving, okay? When the will to receive, the framework of the will to receive is occupied with receiving. Now, how does this actually work? Well, the other thing that the sages tell us is what we do on Yom Kippur is to do confessions. All right. Now, what is a confession? Let's think about something, that you've done or we've done, I've done, whatever. Okay. We can all think about something in our minds. We don't have to tell anybody, whatever it was. Okay. That we don't like, that we wish we hadn't, that we'd rather not have done that. Okay. And we want to say sorry. This is one of the things we want to get rid of. Okay. So when we go back into our mind, all right, and remember what it was we've done, what are we actually doing? We're bringing that light, which we used originally for our will to receive for ourselves alone, which is called from above to below, and we took for ourselves alone. Okay. And when we're doing confession in our minds, we're going back to the same sort of that same energy with, in our minds, we're going back to that same thought of action. Okay. But this time, not in order to enjoy the illicit pleasure, this time it's in order to let go, to say no, to say, sorry, I don't want that anymore. To say, I'm ashamed I did that. I don't want to do that anymore. I regret what I did and I resolve to do better. Okay? So what we're doing with the confessions is we are actually bringing the light, okay, down. But before we get to the point of enjoying the negative, we give it back. And we say, so I'm bringing this light, I'm thinking about it in order to say sorry, not in order to enjoy it. Okay? So we have this great light comes into the world, and there's 2 elements, 2 completely opposite elements of how it's being used. All right? One element, which is I'm bringing it in order to give, is represented in the Beit HaMikdash by the he-goat, which was offered up for God. Okay? This great light, I said, is also here, and the will to receive, the whole framework of the will to receive grabs onto it. Okay? Because it wants it, it's its sustenance. but it doesn't understand a few things, okay? Number one, it doesn't understand that by it holding onto this light, it's actually self-destructing. Okay, what's the end result of the Se'ir Azazel, of the goat which gets sent to God with all the sins? Okay, it gets thrown off a cliff, and before it's even reached the bottom, it's already dismembered completely. And so the whole framework of the world to receive, okay, it's kind of a tactic, if you like. All right, but it works. What happens is that it starts to receive the light, okay? And what does it do? It changes from being an accuser of Israel, of the will to give, to its best friend. Why? Because Israel, by doing vidui, by doing confessions, they are actually bringing the light. So the will to receive oneself alone, we're not conscious of this bit, okay? We are not conscious of this whole issue with the sitra achra and the will to receive. Our consciousness is firmly fixed on giving back, on saying sorry, of letting go, okay? That's where our conscious is. So this is a process which is happening, I suppose, in our unconscious, which we're not consciously aware of, okay, because we can't be conscious of two opposite things at the same time. But this process is happening in which our will to receive for ourselves alone is actually, on the one hand, is very happy to receive our sins because it says, wow, I'm getting some light, terrific. All right. So it changes what's in this language of the Kabbalah. It changes from being an accuser to being a defender, say, oh, this is great. Okay. It separates from holiness, meaning that it while we are dealing with holiness, it leaves. All right. And this is true also for during the year. It means that whenever we're really doing our work for giving and we're doing our Torah and mitzvot, our will to receive calms down, goes away, goes in a different direction, because we can't be, so long as we're doing it with the best of our abilities, we can't be in two minds at the same time. So our will to receive separates from holiness, and finally it destroys itself. Okay? So this is the inner meaning of what's actually happening on Yom Kippur, which is really amazing. Okay? And when we sort of see it like that, you begin to see that this whole thing actually does make sense and it does hold together. All right? So that was the kind of introduction I wanted to give. Oh, and I forgot to give the prayer. Oh dear. Let me start off with the prayer. Well, we'll start off with the prayer now, and then we will where's my prayer gone? Heavens. Lost. Here we are. Okay, now. And then we'll start looking at these ideas in the actual material. Okay? All right. ריבון העולמים ואדוני אדונים, אף הרחמן והסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, בקידה בשתחוויה, שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומה חיינו, אשר עשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה, על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ואל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לביניך. וכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבבך, ותקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הערל בסודות תורתך, ויהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח, לפני כיסא כבודך קרח ניחוח, ותציל עלינו, אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודיך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם, וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, יעמוד לנו לבל ניכשל בדברים אלו. ובזכותם תראה עינינו במה שאנו לומדים, כמאמר נעים זמירות ישראל. גל עיניי והביט הנפלאות מתורתך, כאדוני ייתן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יולרות צוני מפי, וגאון מבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Amen. כן יהי רצון. Okay, great. I want to dedicate the learning to the relief of the hostages and to the safety of the soldiers, and refuah shalema for all the p'tuim, and for the comfort of all the bereaved families. Amen. Now, here we are. How do I do share? Here we are. So we're going to look at Shamati. Okay, this is the oral teachings that Rabbi Ashlag gave, Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag gave on Yom Kippur. All right, and we'll just work through them. All right, I couldn't figure out which one was the right one to begin with, so I said, okay, we'll begin from the beginning. All right, and we'll see how what we just discussed actually is portrayed in his writings. Okay. Ashrei maskil nasui pesha kisui chata'a. Happy is the maskil, somebody who contemplates, somebody who's got wisdom. Nasui pesha, who carries transgression, kisui chata'a, and sin is covered. I don't think I translated that too well, but never mind. All right, that's where it's from, Psalms 32. All right. Maskil. What's a maskil? A maskil is called al shem hamshachat chokhmah. Okay, that the great light of chokhmah is present. She'ev shah shetzeh bechinat mechilat avonot b'li hamshachat chokhmah. Because you can't have the forgiveness of sins without the great light of chokhmah present. Okay? That's what actually happens. We need this great light, okay? Because, like we said, it's the same idea. We need great light in order to get us out of Egypt, all right? So this is the same idea. We need great light in order to forgive sins, okay? ואז הוא זוכה להשגחה פרטית, ואז הוא רואה שהשם יתברך הוא הנושא לפשע. ודוק לשונו. So when, he says here, so when God, mitgaleh Adam, okay, when Hashem, the light of God appears in a person's consciousness, okay, that is to say that we're doing vidoy, okay, we're using the light, bringing the light not in order to use it, but in order to mend our relationship, in order to go for the aspect of giving, okay? Then the light of God can appear to a human being. So long as we are still dirty with sins, so long as we are still filled with our will to receive for ourselves alone, so long as we're still pulling the light towards us to receive, okay, then the light of God can't come in, all right? But when we do this work on Yom Kippur of refraining from eating, drinking, and all the rest of it, okay, and working as much as we can on saying sorry, okay, on looking at the confessions and realizing that they do apply to us and making our own private ones as well, all right, then we are when we've done that work, then the light of God can reveal himself to a person because he's cleaned up, all right? And he's in affinity of form, okay? And what does that light of God show him? It says here, Azaydan misig shehu asa v'oseh v'yaseh lekol ha'ma'asim, that in fact it was God who did and does and will do all the actions, okay? V'u gam asher asad kol ha'psha'im shel ha'adam. And it was even God who caused the person to do even the transgressions, even the zdonot of a person. Now, why would God do that? Why would God, after all, he's the one who's conducting the world. Why would God cause us to sin? So that we come to the recognition that the will to receive for ourselves alone is evil. Okay? And that it causes suffering. And it causes us to separate from each other, and it causes us to separate from God. And so we can only, most of us, it's true, we learn through experience. And even, in the Gemara, it says something fascinating. It says that a person cannot truthfully keep a halacha unless he's broken it at least one time. Okay? We learn by doing the opposite. We learn the negative we learn the positive by discovering by bitter experience what the negative is. So when God's light does come into us after we've done all this work for Yom Kippur, what do we find? We find that it was God himself who organized all the events of our lives. And this brings us to the recognition of the evil within us and the fact that we need God's help. All right? It's very humbling, the whole experience of Yom Kippur. And a lot of people don't like it, okay? Because it is humbling. Either they get feeling a lot of guilt or fearful what's going to be, or shamed by it. But in actual fact, it really is an opportunity, okay? It's like having, a nice bath to wash off all the dirt of the whole year and to start again fresh, all right? So, okay, just imagine that you've been, all year getting physically dirty and you never had a bath once, all right? It's the Elizabethans were like that, apparently. And they were scared of getting baths, apparently. Not Jewish ones, but English ones. Okay. And so they never had a bath all year. So if you imagine that kind of thing, all right, and then you go, oh, you're in a wonderful bath and all the dirt comes up to the surface. Okay, that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. You're like, wow, terrific, so good to let it all go. All right, that's kind of the feeling that you want. You're glad to let go of the rubbish. You're glad to have a restart button. You're glad to, take the opportunity to let go of some aspects of will to receive and get closer to God with giving. So this is really, really what it's about. So I think personally one should approach a Yom Kippur with anticipation and with hope and with confidence and that's what one needs the mindset. Okay. כיסוי חטאה, covering up of sin, נקרא, שבזמן שאתה ממשיך איזו הערה, אז נמשכת לתחתון בחינת שלמות, הן גמור שונות והן וו קצוות. ובזמן שיש בחינת גימוב שונות, אז מתעוררת בחינת המנולה, שמשם באים כל הדינים. Okay, so this next phrase, kisoi chata'ah, covering up of sin, okay, what is that about? That is when a person brings any light, okay, all right, which is what we're doing when we're doing vidui, okay, we're going back to the original will to receive, which brought light. And when we did it originally, it was illicit. Now we're going to do a better job. As nimshachet atachton b'chinat shleimut. Then what comes to the created being is a whole package. All right, we get both. We get the full level of light. All right, and what we need to do is we have to say no to that full level of light, because that full level of light is the food of the Sitra Achra. And what we need to do instead is to give that back and only use the light from below to above, which are the lowest 6 Sfirot only. Okay? Now, when there is a full level of light, then the whole issue of the will to receive oneself alone wakes up, okay? And that's where all the judgments come from, all the suffering comes from, all right? And this is what Rabbi Gottlieb writes here. The malchut of the aspect of judgment wakes up. Which is the essence of the will to receive within the soul of a person. Who wants to receive the gimul shonot of the light of Chokhmah, which is or galut Hashem b'tachlit gova, which is the maximum amount of the light of God in the, full 10 Sfirot. Lenot mimenu, and wants to enjoy it. That's the will to receive for us, okay? Umalchut zo muchune manula. And this desire of the malchut is called the manula. The word in Hebrew is like a lock, okay? And why is it called that? Because when that huge light is come, and if we're trying to receive it for ourselves alone, what happens? That all the the channels of bounty will get locked, okay? For the human being, we're not allowed to receive that light, and in fact, if we try to, it disappears anyhow. So that's called the manula. Okay. On the other hand, on Yom Kippur, like we said, he can choose to just receive the minimum, okay, the minimum, and actually function only for the sake of giving. But the presence of that great light is actually doing the job of forgiving the sins, okay? He might not be aware of it, okay? I think quite often we're not aware. I think that we're focused on the actual work of giving on Yom Kippur. We are trying very hard, not to focus on our tummies, but we're focusing on the prayers, we're focusing on the confessions, we're focusing on doing the best we can, okay, and praying to God for what we need, and, what we need in holiness, what we need, bichlal. Okay, so we're directing our attention to our connection with the Creator. So the whole process of the cleaning and what happens with the Sitra Achra, I think that we're not necessarily going to be aware of it, certainly not during Yom Kippur. I think the awareness of that actually comes on Simchat Torah. That's when you really feel the joy, okay, of the connection with God and the forgiveness and the light and the joy and the dancing and everything. That's what you feel on Simchat Torah. On Yom Kippur, we don't feel that. I mean, I've never experienced feeling that. I've always experienced, just the work, basically. Okay. But you can believe that it's happening, all right? And that's actually the correct way to do it, is just simply believe that it's happening and believe in the process that the sages and that God and the sages have given us. Okay. He carries on in a bit which I don't quite understand. ואז בפעם הראשונה השם יתברך מכסה על בחינת המנעולה שלא תתראה לו חוץ, אלא שתהיה מכוסה, ואז מתבטלים כל הדינים. That translates as, and then the first time God covers up this issue of the will to receive, okay, so it's not obvious, it's covered up, and the judgments are nullified. And Rabbi Gottlieb writes that the first time a person sins, okay, he's receiving the light, but his intention really is for the sake of giving. He doesn't realize what's actually happening. The second time, the will to receive just says, this is what I want. You can understand this from the story of Adam and Eve. The story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden is exactly the same story that we're dealing with, all the time, which is, of course, how the will to receive for ourselves alone actually came into the human being in the first place. So the first time that Adam and Eve ate from the apple, they ate it in good faith. They said, wow, there's this light, and God definitely wants us to receive it only for the sake of giving. So they actually ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil for good intentions. They said, wow, we should receive this only for the sake of giving, and that will fulfill God's intention. Okay? But of course, once that huge desires were inside of them, and they'd taken this great light inside of them, they couldn't restrain any longer. And so they actually, the second time, they were receiving for themselves alone. Okay. So I'm not quite sure what this bit is, what he's trying to say here for us. Okay, why does he bring this here? I don't really know. Okay, right. Let's have a look at another one. You could call out, by the way, if you've got any questions. All right. Otherwise, if you're not with me at all, just sort of say or put in the chat, I'm not with you or something. All right. Otherwise, I'll assume that somehow or other we're together. Okay. Inyan Shabbat Shuvah. This year of Shabbat Shuvah. Now, I know we've already had Shabbat Shuvah. It came right after Rosh Hashanah this year. So it kind of like, sort of was the extra addition for Rosh Hashanah. All right. But what he says here is very interesting. So even though we've had Shabbat Shuvah already, let's read what he says. Tam lama shekorin Shabbat Shuvah. Why do we call Shabbat Shuvah the Shabbat of Shuvah? Ki b'Yom Kippurim omrim al chet, because on Yom Kippur we say for the sins. Okay, and you've got this whole long list, all right, of all these sins. Okay. וכל מי שמביט בעל חטא אינו מוצא שם את מקומו ב-60% ודאי. And somebody who just comes along and looks at this whole long list of all the confessions, okay, can't find how this relates to him at all. All right, well, at least he says in 60% of it. And 60% he says this has got nothing to do with me. I really haven't got any hold on any of this. This is not me. ו-40% אפשר ליישב איתו, אולי נמצא שם בספק שהוא לא מרגיש. And in the 40%, he can sort of say, well, maybe I have some, connection with these particular sins, even though I can't actually feel anything. But in 60%, he says, can't find anything to do with me at all. ולכן יש סגולת שבת. So we have the סגולה of Shabbat, שעם אור השבת יש יכולת שיהיה לאדם ויוכל לראות שהוא נמצא את עצמו בכל 100% של על-חטא. So with the light of Shabbat, the light can come to a person and he's able to see that he can find himself in all 100% of the al-Khaits. Okay? Now, you could ask a question. Why would a person want that? Okay? Why would I actually want to see myself in all 100% of the al-Khaits? And the answer is like this. Number one, I want to get clean from all my wills to receive. And I have to say that that list of the al-Khaits is very, very useful. It goes into subtleties that on my own I would never think about. All right? So to actually be able to see oneself in all 100% of the Asham news and the Bagad news and the al-Khaits is actually a gift. All right? And the other reason is because, going back to what we're talking about, the more sins we discover, the more vessels for the light we actually have. Okay? Admittedly, we've used them for our will to receive to start off with, but we're going to do the transformation, Bezrat Hashem, on Yom Kippur. All right, that we're going to be using these vessels, these will desires to receive only for the sake of giving from now on, or use them as vessels for the light of God. So in fact, the tzaddikim in the old days would actually try to find as many sins as they could, because they were aware that the more sins they had and the more transformation they could do, the more they could be able to receive the light of God afterwards, because they had more vessels. Okay? So the light of Shabbat, well, we've already had Shabbat. So we can trust the fact that the light of Shabbat is still with us, okay? And we can look at that al-Khaits out of a sense of, not out of a sense of, oh God, kind of thing, what's this got to do with me? But out of a sense of, oh, I wonder what I can see of myself in it. All right? So go from a place of curiosity, go from a place of interest, go from a place of desire to get cleaned up. All right? So if you go from that sort of direction, not, oh God, I feel guilty and I don't like this, go from the place of, yes, I want to find as much as I can so that it can all be forgiven. All right? And he needs to understand that the illumination, to be able to see the darkness, to see the dark within us, is also a great gift. Okay? When is it that we see that the house is dirty? Is when the lights are on, or in bright daylight, or the sunshine comes. And you know what it's like, okay? After the darkness of winter, when Pesach comes, we all go crazy, cleaning. All right, we know perfectly well that cleaning houses is not chometz. All right, but we do cleaning. Why do we do cleaning? Because after the dullness of the winter and the darkness of the winter, suddenly the sunshine comes in. And what do you see? You see all the dirt. All right? You see how the windows are dirty, etc., etc. So again, the more light that there is, the more we are able to see the darkness within it. And that's a good thing, because then we're able to ask God to help us correct it. Okay? So he sees this light and it's shining for him, and he can now see that he's got every connection with the confessions. All right? But this light is only for himself. It's not so maybe you can see other people and their issues. It's only so you can see your own issues. Bli or lo magishim. That's right. Without light, we simply cannot feel our dirt. V'lachen korim l'Shabbat zo Shabbat Tshuva. And that's why we call this Shabbat the Shabbat of Tshuva. Shabbat mo'ila l'Tshuva, because Shabbat is beneficial for Tshuva. Because what does it do? It shines its light that we're able to feel the sin. Why? You have to actually be able to feel what we're talking about, okay, and acknowledge the sin, and then you can say sorry, okay? But if a person is, just saying, I'll hate this and I'll hate that, and he really doesn't feel anything, it's oh, what sort of an announcement is that? Okay? Because what he's really saying inside himself is that I didn't sin. And if he's just saying words with his mouth and his heart's not there, okay, then of course that sort of vidoy, that sort of confession isn't really worth very much. That's what he says here. Okay, so my recommendation is, if you can take, a bit of time tonight, early tomorrow morning, before you've got to get busy with all the cooking and things, just to look at those al-khaits. So you've got some idea beforehand, and if you're English speaking, all right, and you don't have an English thing on the machzah, then you can find them, the English translations, all right, on Sefaria has got them, and there's probably other places as well on the internet. Get prepared in advance, print out the pages that you're going to need if you haven't got a machzah with English. Print out the pages. And on the other thing I wanted to tell you was on Sefaria, if you look up the machzah, they don't have English for the Edot HaMizrach machzah, but they do have English for the Ashkenazi machzah. And it's really nice, in the confessions, you've got explanations of what these things actually are, because some of them seem quite obscure. So you've got explanations from Rabbi the Gaon of Vilna, and they put that in English as well. Okay, so you can just click on the little number and it'll open up and you can see what it's about. Okay, so you want to do your best so that our confessions are, in fact, as real as they can be. Okay? Everybody okay?
Yes. Baruch Hashem, my machzah's got all the English and the explanations, and it's Ashkenazi and I daven in Sfaradi too. But anyway.
Oh, whoops. I do find that a little tricky. I do love the Sephardi shul.
Yes.
I really, really love it. I love it on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's such a much happier atmosphere for me, and I find that so important. But
Yedida?
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
We've been doing this for years.
Yes.
Many, 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 many years.
Yes.
Are we proceeding towards anything?
Good question. I mean, your question basically is, am I just going around in circles chasing my tail?
Years.
Right. And the answer is absolutely we are. Okay.
What's happening?
Okay, so what's happening? All right. First of all, the way human beings grow is in circles, like trees. Okay? That's the way we grow. The Kabbalah tells us that the 12 months of the year is the cycle which the Malchut goes around each year. It starts off on first day of Rosh Hashanah, the first day of the new year, and it completes 12-month cycle each time. Okay. Now, as we go round each time, we are completing tikkun of the Malchut as we go around, but we haven't actually completely finished. So we go round again. But that doesn't mean to say that we're dealing with precisely the same issues. We're not. In fact, we're actually dealing with different issues. All right. That might not be our perception. Okay. It might be that we feel that we're just playing the same old record round again, but that's actually not the case. Every single time we bump into ourselves, if you like, we're bumping into it from a different aspect. It might not be obvious to us, but we are. Okay. Every single day has its own particular tikkun. Every single week, every single Parshat Shavua, every single month, every Rosh Chodesh, every single festival. So the Malchut goes round, and every single time it is, in fact, correcting a different aspect of itself than it was in all the previous years. And eventually, we will do the last cycle, and that will be the Gemara Tikkun. Okay? Now, your question is, why doesn't it feel like that? Why don't I feel I'm progressing? And the answer is because the human being is only given to see the very last state. Okay? He's not able to see what he's already corrected. He's only able to see what he hasn't corrected yet. Okay? Why is that? Because we've all got wills to receive, all right? And if we were able to see what we've already done, we'd all be out to lunch. We'd be sitting there with our feet up saying, oh, look how much I've already done. Fantastic. And we wouldn't have any spur or any impetus whatsoever to keep going. So we don't actually not able to see what we've already corrected. That's kept for us in a conscious area called Atik Yomin. All right. So we're not actually, it's not accessible to us right now. And what we can actually see is what we haven't yet dealt with. And since what we haven't yet dealt with looks the same as we go around, okay, we think we're not going anywhere, but in fact we are. Somebody put something in the chat. I did ask Rabbi Fink what to do as I cannot find an Ashkenazi shul nearby. He told me to daven the silent parts of the tefillah from the Ashkenazi machzor and then follow the out louds from the Sephardi machzor. So that sounds very helpful. That's very nice. That's a very good suggestion.
A win-win situation.
Yeah. That's a very nice solution, in my humble opinion.
Yes.
Yeah. So you get all the jolly bits with the Sephardim.
Yes.
And you can focus on the silent and media, the confessions or whatever, and you'll have the English there with you.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, wonderful. Really lovely. That sounds a perfect solution. Great. Oh, is there something else after that? Okay. Fantastic. How are we doing for time? We've got 5 more minutes. Heavens. Okay. Let's see what the next one is. Oh, this is the one of the 2 he-goats. All right. Well, we can't do it in 5 minutes, but we can give it a go. All right. It might take us 10 minutes. Everybody up for it?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
hooray. Because I find this actually very interesting. Okay. So the lots. Why does he have lots? What's it about? And what is these 2 he-goats? First of all, why a he-goat? Okay. That's apparently got meaning. All right. The he-goat is a hairy animal. It's called a sa'ir, okay, because it's very, very hairy, okay. And why are we offering up something which is hairy? Well, hair represents judgments and sins and things like that. Stuff which is disconnected from God, which is not alive. And our hair is not alive. You cut it, it doesn't hurt. Okay, so that's the hint of why the he-goat. All right. So what does he say here? What is the meaning that the two aspects of the he-goat for God and he-goat for Azazel, the one which got sent off into the wilderness and thrown off the cliff, why are they equivalent? Okay, so the one for Azazel is the one which is given to the Sitra Achra, to the other side. And why can't we determine with our mind which is more important? And that's why we need to throw a lot. Okay. And the Zohar finds this very peculiar. And he says, asks a question, how is it possible that the Se'ir for Hashem and the Se'ir for Azazel are equivalent? Okay. V'inyanhu, and the issue is, She'se'ir Hashem u'bechina yamin, that the Se'ir Hashem, the Se'ir for God, is bringing the light only for the sake of giving it back, of giving, okay? Whereas the Se'ir Azazel is interested in the light, bringing the light, in order to receive it. Shesham yesh bechinat gimel shenot chokmah. That's got a huge light. It's the left-hand side. And on this it says, Zachi Tov, if he merits, Lo Zachi Ra. If he doesn't merit, it's bad. What does that mean? It means that this great light has come into the world, okay? And that will to receive wants to receive it, and that can block the channels, okay? But the Se'ir Hashem, okay, is included in the bringing of the light, but not in order to take it, but in order to give it back from below to above. And then the judgment is hidden, and the channels, the open channels, are manifest. So how does it follow then that we don't know which is most important? Because on the one hand, the Se'ir Azazel is bringing the great light of Chokhmah, and the Se'ir Hashem is bringing a small amount of Chokhmah, and it's giving it back. Okay, so you could say, well, the Se'ir Azazel is more important because it's got a bigger amount of the light of Chokhmah. But on the other hand, that great big amount of Chokhmah is stopping all the light from actually shining, okay? Whereas the Se'ir Hashem has got a much smaller amount, but it's only going from below to above, and it's only for the sake of giving. But on the other hand, when the light of God, when we go from that with faith, then that is actually able to be a channel for the connection with God. So you can see on a logical place, we really don't know which is the most important. Okay? We give the great light, which is the Se'ir Azazel, and give it to the will to receive. So that the will to receive won't accuse, that it will feel some satisfaction. Okay? And why is it? Because its desire wants that light of Chokhmah, because without any other level of light, he's not complete. His whole essence is, I need this great light in order to feel complete. And that's why he's all the time wanting to entice a person to come and get all this great big light. And if a person is not interested, he wants to stay in Kedusha, then he'll try all sorts of tactics, okay? Trying to persuade a person to bring this great big light. But if and this is the sort of idea behind it, if it actually sees that through the confessions of sins, it gets its light, it stops bothering the person. Okay, why? Because it doesn't want the person he's afraid maybe he won't get the light which he's already got. Okay, and so what happens is that whilst the Sitra Achra is receiving this great light which comes into the world on Yom Kippur, okay, in order it gets its light then. All right, not a huge amount, just at least some of it, okay, to make it feel happy. Rabbi Gottlieb said it's like throwing a dog a bone, okay, so that you want to have your meal in peace. You don't want the dog to bother you. You give the dog a bone, takes it into the corner, he's very happy, okay, and you can get on to with your meal in peace. All right, that's basically that idea. All right, but at that very moment, okay, with this great light is there, we're not busy with our receiving at all, okay? We're busy dealing with tshuva, all right? But through this great light, we merit to tshuva me'ava, from tshuva, from love. So even our arrogant acts become like merits, okay? Shezdonot nasim k'zchuyot. Wasn't that amazing? And this is the inner meaning that the Se'il Azazel took upon itself the sins of Israel. Why? Because it felt good with them. And this is a parable which the Zohar brings. Actually brings quite a few parables about all this. There's one parable I read which I found was very helpful actually. And it's like there's a minister of justice, okay, in this country. And whenever he turns up, then there's, a lot of trouble. And the king's son has displeased the king, okay? And he's in the palace and he sees this minister of justice turned up. And he's like, oh my God, this must be for me. So what does he do? He goes and makes peace with the king. He says he's sorry and he apologizes. And the king is really pleased that his son has made peace with him and they're both good friends now. But what are we going to do with this minister of justice? So the king says to his chamberlain, and he says, listen, I want to make a really, really good feast to celebrate my reconciliation with my son, but I don't want this fellow here. He's going to spoil everything. How can we get rid of him? So the king says, okay, what we're going to do is bring me a small portion to have just with this minister of justice, okay? So that he'll feel very important and he'll feel very honored and all that. And he'll think that he's dining personally with the king. And don't let him know anything at all about the real feast that I'll be having with my son. Okay? So that's basically this idea of giving something to this Se'il Azazel, giving him a small portion. All right, he thinks he's having the meal with the king. He's very happy about it. And he goes off and he gets thrown over the cliff. And, well, not the Minister of Justice, obviously, but this Se'il Azazel. And basically, because this big light actually destroys even the will to receive for itself alone. So that's the parable. Somebody's put something in the chat. Brilliant, Haya. Like Esther with Haman. You got it. You absolutely got it. 100%. You're absolutely, you're spot on. I think, if I remember, it's even mentioned like that with in the Zohar. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is exactly what Esther did with Haman. Okay, that she kept, boosting up his ego, until he finally fell in completely. All right, very nice. All right, I think that's enough for today. I think we've done extremely well. Okay. All right. So let's just stop the share. Okay, very good. So, you guys can all unmute yourselves and ask me any questions or whatever. Okay, and wish each other K'tiva v'chatima tova.
Thank you, Yedida. I think my Yom Kippur is going to be very different this year. Thank you.
Great.
I'm not so scared and nervous.
Oh, no, absolutely. One doesn't need to be scared. One doesn't need to be nervous. It's a wonderful opportunity. And God's there to help us. The light is shining to help us, not in order to, yeah. It's the whole thing it's a wonderful opportunity, in fact. Yeah.
Yes.
Baruch
Yeah,
Hashem.
it is. Thank you.
All the
You-
best to you, Yedida.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and to you. Everybody in the north, you have my blessings. All the time I
Thank
think about you. Yeah. Stay safe, everybody.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chetima tova.
Yes.
Everybody.
K'tiva v'chatima tova. Absolutely.
I really liked how you said we grow like trees.
We do.
Circles, that made a lot of sense to me and kind of is like an easier way to digest how repetitive and strange life can seem with synchronicities.
Yeah.
So I really liked that.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're very welcome, everybody. You really are. It's wonderful to be able to share this beautiful material. Okay, and come to Yom Kippur happy.
Amen. Yes.
Yay. Bezrat Hashem.
All right.
Okay, so
Take care.
Gemara Tova, and stay safe, everyone.
Easy
Amen.
fast.
Thank
Everybody
you.
easy fast.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bless you
Thanks.
all.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
All the